Everyone knows the name Shakespeare. It's iconic the world over. But did your English teacher ever tell you that the man from Stratford never used the name personally? Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Fred Faulkes. I'm a retired librarian who's had a lifelong interest in Elizabethan history and for the past 25 years a particular interest in Shakespeare's biography. Over the course I've come to discover many things that have put me at odds with what my teachers taught me, and so these are the things that I would like to share with you over the course of this series. It is this year, 2023, the 400th anniversary of the first appearance of Shakespeare's first folio. It was in November of 1623 that 900-page volume appeared for the first time. To mark that anniversary, I'd like to devote the first several episodes of this series to that volume and point a few things out to you that perhaps have escaped most of our attention. The title, Master William Shakespeare's Comedies, Histories and Tragedies, is unusual, for here we see that the name and the title are one and the same. So out of that title then we can infer that the authorial name is William Shakespeare. But now what I want to tell you today is that that is not the name that the man from Stratford himself used. And you're going to have to bear me out here. First of all, when he was born to a family that was called Shakespeare. Now, in this time, Shakespeare was pronounced Shakespeare, so something to keep in mind, and we'll come back to this. But anyway, he was born Shakespeare. The church registry has him as Shakespeare. His family name up to then was Shakespeare. And we have 6 surviving signatures of his, all of them Shakespeare, Shakspere, and it appears to have been pronounced Shakespeare or Shakespeare. Where things become interesting is that whenever the man had to give his name orally to, say, a clerk, he always pronounced it Shakespeare, and so the clerks always wrote Shakespeare. Sometimes they wrote it Shakspere, sometimes with a B, so it became Shakespeare. Even someone, I believe, put a D at the end, so it was Shakespeare. Anyway, it was the name that the clerks appear to have written down. So this was the name that he used orally. This is the name he gave in interviews. And this is, I mean, you know, the argument you so often hear is, oh, Fred, spelling at this time was all over the place. It was completely phonetic. And I say, yes, that's exactly my point. It was phonetic. And because he said Shakespeare, they wrote Shakespeare. Not to be mean to the name of Shakespeare, because if he had said Shakespeare, well, they would have written Shakespeare. You know, it's as simple as that. So I just want everyone to be clear that the man from Stratford, in his day-to-day dealings, in his day-to-day life, in the way he was buried, in the way he was married, in the way his children were christened, etc., etc., they were always Shakespeare. Now, I admit that over the course, in fact, over the course of 30 years, that name Shakespeare, or to put it in its, to give both names their modern form, let's call the one Shakespeare and the other Shakespeare, just to distinguish them. And Shakespeare then, as a literary name, as an authorial literary entity, was definitely a reality for the 30 years leading up to 1623, because the name appears on the covers or at the head of dozens of publications. So the name was there. But now I just want to point one thing out about that name, Shakespeare. It was an unusual name for a man to take, because the reference isn't, as we moderns might think, to military men going off to war with their spears all shaking and, that kind of tone. No, for Elizabethan schoolboys and the girls who got a proper education, the spear shaker was only one person, and that person was Pallas Athena, whom the Romans called Minerva. She was born by breaking out of her father's forehead, bearing a spear in one hand and a goatskin shield in the other. And she shook this spear so vigorously that ever after she was remembered as the spear shaker. And so for a man to adopt this name is a bit unusual. So whatever warlike qualities she may have evoked by way of her name, for Elizabethans, she was definitely the goddess of wisdom, warfare, and handicrafts. And her symbol was an owl. And I just want to say as an aside, we're going to meet with a lot of owls. No, sorry. We're going to meet with a lot of birds over the course. So be prepared for that. But as the choice for an authorial name, Shakespeare was then unusual for a man to take, because the association was very strongly female. But as we'll see as we go along, maybe that wasn't quite the problem that people might think. So, spear, your teacher might say, well, who cares, it's all the same thing. But I'm going to ask that you just keep those two things in mind, that Mr. Shakespeare of Stratford was a man, and we're going to meet all about him, read all about him. And the works of Shakespeare were a very real thing, and we're going to find out all about them as well. Next time we meet, I hope to have a look at his face, because there are some very interesting things to point out there. So until then, if you're looking for something more to read, I can think of nothing better at this stage than to read some of the sonnets of Sir Philip Sidney and some of the sonnets of Shakespeare, and read them out loud and let them roll around in your mouth a little, and see what flavors come off these two writers. Anyway, until then, hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.